we are. Hello again. Welcome back, and we're on to Chapter 4. The adventure continues until Handsome has had enough. We ended the last story with Dwayne in a very good mood, standing at the top of the waterfall, and Handsome in a very dark mood, grumbling at the bottom. Dwayne was happy because he had discovered two things that would allow them to continue on with their exploration. For one, the river appeared to be at its narrowest. For another, Dwayne counted half a dozen large rocks with flat tops sticking out of the river, spaced close enough for a polar bear or a musk ox to make his way to the other side and not get wet. Handsome was unhappy because he had discovered that you should not make boasts about how much you love exploring and hiking and climbing if the truth is that you absolutely don't. So while Handsome unhappily trudged up the steep hill to join Dwayne, I will take this opportunity to inform you that there was someone on the other side of the river, hidden from view behind a hillock. That someone in question was Major Puff, who is a puffin, and if you've never met a puffin before, I will explain that it is a short black and white bird with a rounded chest and a large beak which is orange and gray in color. You may think that what I've described is a very pleasant-looking bird. You may also think that a pleasant-looking bird would have an agreeable manner, and that may be true. However, this particular puffin, Major Puff, does not always make for the best first impression, which is why I thought I'd step in now. Major Puff will tell you that he comes from a long line of military heroes. He will tell you this often and in great detail, whether you want to hear it or not. Major Puff knows all about the glorious battles of the past, most involving the puffins' wicked and vile enemy, the great black-backed gulls. For hundreds of years, these vicious foes have fought dirty. They've attempted to bring disorder and destruction upon the puffin nation. And for centuries, too, Major Puff's ancestors have led the way to victory each and every time. Major Puff is very proud of his lineage. It means that he is a puffin of good breeding, possessing the qualities of honor and bravery. Also worth mentioning is that Major Puff has not been in battle himself. He has not been tested, so to speak, nor has he ever seen a great black-backed gull face to face, which keeps him on continuous guard should he find himself in close proximity with his archenemy without knowing it. But what if Major Puff does very well is march? He is extraordinarily good at marching because he practices every day. Back straight, chest out, chin at a 90-degree angle, he marches with stiff legs, advancing for hours on end, as you can see. And so we find Major Puff marching back and forth behind a hillock and out of sight of Dwayne and Handsome, who will soon cross the river. Among the benefits of marching is, of course, battle preparedness, as well as physical fitness, but it also helps a puffin think, and Major Puff had something important to think about at that moment. As the last hints of summer faded, Major Puff was in deep deliberation on whether or not to migrate south. Major Puff didn't really have to migrate south for the winter. There was no instinct compelling him or any puffin to fly south. But Major Puffin liked the idea of going somewhere warm for a few months each year, or every other year, or whenever the mood struck him. Yet he didn't want to call it a holiday. Holidays were frivolous and silly, whereas a migration sounded much more serious and responsible, befitting a puffin of the military class. Migrations were traditional as well, and Major Puff was all about keeping up traditions. Decision made. On the other hand, maybe he should spend the winter staying put in the very, very far north. Remaining there would have nothing to do with his overwhelming fear about flying in general, or the great danger and difficulty of a migration in particular. Oh no, it's more likely that he just found winter a delight, and it would be a shame to leave, missing out on all that freezing cold wintry splendor. Oh, and his staying would also not have anything to do with him not wanting to leave the burrow home that he heroically captured last spring, once he was sure there was no one else living there anymore. Major Puff always heroically captured empty burrow homes. It was the Puffin way. Back and forth, left, right. A decision was not soon coming. So let us return now to the other side of the river at the moment when Handsome reached Dwayne. Dwayne, I must tell you that I can't possibly continue on this Look, Handsome, Dwayne interrupted. A river crossing made of rocks. How fortunate. And look behind us. That's my cave, and there's your field, ever so close. We didn't even need to climb up this very steep hill. Isn't that funny? Said Handsome without a trace of amusement. Sweat dripped from his fur. Since it was your spirit of exploration that brought us here, Handsome, it seems only fitting that you should cross the river first. Dwayne respectfully stepped aside, allowing room for the musk ox to take the lead. But I couldn't, Handsome said politely, but nervously. But I insist, said Dwayne with a humble nod. Yeah. Handsome studied the rocks with intense mistrust. He stretched one of his front hooves onto the closest rock, testing it for any wobbliness. It held firm. He looked over at Dwayne, who was still smiling and giving him encouraging tilts of the head toward the river. Handsome said again, and this time without a trace of eagerness, and then resigning himself to the task, he stepped onto the first rock, which did not wobble, although Handsome did plenty of wobbling for the both of them. Oh my! This is not comfortable. I am not steady, Dwayne. I am not steady. You're doing great, Dwayne responded, but keep going so not all your hooves are on the same rock. With front legs shaking, Handsome forced himself to take another step so that now he straddled two rocks, with his belly hanging over the water that rushed between them. At first his balance steadied, but then, because Handsome was staring down at the moving river, it brought on a spell of dizziness that caused him to sway this way and that. Oh my, this is not comfortable in the least. I am not steady, Dwayne. I am not steady. Handsome's shouts of distress pulled Major Puff out of his deep pondering about migration. His training threw him into immediate action. He marched up to the top of the hillock to learn what the commotion was all about. What's all this, then? He wondered aloud. Spying down from his high perch, Major Puff saw two creatures he'd never met before. Both of them were much larger than he. One was on the far side of the river, covered in white fur, but it was the other one, standing on two rocks in the middle of the river, covered in long strands of black hair that gave Major Puff pause. Could it be? He asked himself, his eyes narrowing. Could it be that I have come face to face with my mortal enemy, the great black-backed gull? Of course he hadn't, because the great black-backed gull was a bird, and although it was a bigger bird than a puffin, it was not nearly as big as a muskox. But good luck telling the Major that at the moment. For Major Puff, this was the hour of reckoning. All those years of marching would finally pay off. Was he afraid? Of course he was afraid. But what soldier isn't afraid when he goes into battle? We'll continue this chapter in a bit. Thanks.